It's 1 o'clock there, so we'll get started. So, welcome everyone. Today, Michaela will be giving us a presentation on poetry since April is National Poetry Month. So, I will give you the floor, Michaela.
Awesome, thank you. So my name is Michaela, and I am a placement student here at Near North Palliative Care Network. And we're just going to talk a little bit about poetry, some of the benefits of poetry, and just a few different types of poetry as well. So first of all, what is poetry? So poetry is a type of literature that conveys a thought, describes a scene, or tells a story in a concentrated lyrical arrangement of words. Um, and there are many, many different types of poetry. There's blank verse poetry, rhymed poetry, free verse, haiku. There's free, just like freelance. There's sonnets, there's slam poetry. There's so many different types of poetry out there. So these are just a few poetry definitions that are good to know. So in poetry, there is something called a meter, and this imposes a specific length and emphasis that are given on a line of poetry. It is typically based on the basic rhythmic structure of a line and consists of two different components. So it consists of the number of syllables in a line and also a pattern of emphasis on those syllables. So for example, for different types of poetry, it may put emphasis on the first syllable in a two-syllable word, or if it's three syllables, it could put emphasis on the middle syllabus, for example, and that's called the meter. There's also the stanza, and the stanza are a series of lines that relate to the thought and topic of the poem. And there's also rhyme scheme. And depending on the type of poem that is being written, depends on the rhyme scheme that's going to be used. It can be different for each type of poem. And one of the most common rhyme schemes are composed of shared vowel sounds and consonants. So these are just some benefits of poetry. There's many, many benefits that come from reading poetry as well as writing poetry. So I'm going to focus on the benefits of writing poetry. So one of the benefits is that it can improve cognitive function. When writing poetry, you are constantly learning new words, maybe new words for a word you use a lot, so it rhymes with your poem. You're also figuring out the meter. So you're sometimes using math to figure out how many syllables are in a word and how many syllables are in a line, depending on what kind of poem you're writing. And you're also learning how to put your thoughts and feelings into words, which can help your cognitive function very much. It also can help to heal emotional pain. Poetry allows you to be able to put your thoughts and feelings into words in a creative way. Reading poetry also allows you to relate your feelings to those that may have to words and poems that are already written, and can help you to really feel those feelings and process them, and in turn help you write your own poem. Another benefit is that it can lead you to greater self-awareness. Poetry can help you to gain more insight on yourself, and also allows us to reflect on what you have written, and also allows you to reflect on your life overall. It is a great way to just become more self-aware and understand what thoughts and feelings you may be going through, what's important to you, what is your purpose and in life and everything. It's a great way to just self-reflect. And also poetry can provide a gift of inspiration and also educate others. when you write a poem or find a poem that hits close to you, you're able to share your poem or the poem you have found if you're comfortable with other people. And that can help them become inspired and find their self-awareness through poetry. But it also allows you to kind of share with them your thoughts and feelings without verbally having to speak them. So there's many different ways that poetry can be beneficial to you. So these are just a few. We're going to go through 3 different types of poems. And the first one is a blank verse poem. So this poem is typically written with a precise meter, which is the, I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but the iambic pentameter. But this poem does not have to rhyme and doesn't typically rhyme. So like I said, it's typically written in iambic pentameter, which what that is it consists of 10 syllables in a specific pattern, where in a 2-syllable phrase, the second syllable is emphasized. And some examples of blank verse poem are To Be or Not to Be from William Shakespeare's play Hamlet, Paradise Lost by John Milton, and The Second Coming by W.B. Yeats. So those are just a few examples. So the next type of poetry I'm going to talk about is haiku poetry. Some of you may have heard of haiku poetry before. So haiku poetry is an unrhymed poetry form consisting of 17 syllables in total. There are a few different types of haiku poetry. There's more modern haiku poetry and some older stuff. But typically today, haiku poetry consists of 3 short lines that do not rhyme. And typically in those 3 lines, the first line has 5 syllables, the second line has 7 syllables, and the third has 5 syllables. This type of poetry first emerged in Japanese literature in the 27th century. And the term haiku comes from the first element of the word heike, which is a humorous form of renga, our linked verse poem. And the second element of the word, and the term haiku also comes from the second element of the word hoku, which is the initial stanza of a renga. My apologies if I am saying any of those words incorrectly. So an example of haiku poetry would be bucket list dreaming, all the mountains I will climb and things I will see. So this poem I found, and it's from an anonymous person. And for me, viewing this haiku, it's basically just talking about creating a bucket list and seeing where it goes from there. So the nice thing about poetry is you can kind of imagine, not imagine, but you can take from it what you want to take from it, which is nice. So the last type of poetry I'm going to talk about is slam poetry. Now, this type of poetry is a bit newer compared to other types of poetry. This form of poetry combines performance, writing, competition, and audience participation. It's typically performed at a variety of events that are called poetry slams. And what happens is anybody is allowed to write a poem and share it. It doesn't have to rhyme. It's not a specific kind of poetry. It's whatever poetry they wish to share. And at many slam poetries, they will ask 5 audience members to rate the poem on a scale of 1 to 10. And they'll take the lowest number out, the highest number out, at the end of it, and the 3 middle numbers, they will find the average, and at the end of the show, whoever has the highest number would be the winner of this competition. So a little fun fact about slam poetry is that it originated in 1980 in Chicago, Illinois. And it was just a way for someone to bring everyone together to share their poetry and make it a fun little game. So I do have an example of a person sharing their poetry. It's called I Want to Be by Maya Mayer. So we'll just watch this.
How are y'all doing tonight? I am very excited to be here. I actually performed at the finals in the first Classic Slam many moons ago. So, yeah, so I'm going to perform a poem tonight. This is called I Want to Be. Yeah, okay. I want to be well read. I want to read Dostoevsky and Tolstoy and confidently pronounce their names. I want to read every book by every Russian author. I want to read all of the classics, the Pulitzer Prize winners, the national bestsellers, the undiscovered contemporaries before their novels are turned into movies, before they plaster the face of blockbuster actors on every cover until I'd be too ashamed to buy it. I want to write notes in the margins of pages with thought-provoking insight, character motives, and plot devices. I want to read every single book on my bookshelf. I will stare at them all until something happens. I will carefully trace the lines of every crease on every bind of every book, looking for a shortcut, a way to read them all at once, because I want to be well read. I want to be smart. I want to know all the things. I want my brain to be a complex work of art. I want to start now. I want to be well-rounded. I want to start playing violin again. I want it to sound beautiful and impressive and technically difficult. I want to relearn how to read music and play Tchaikovsky's Symphony No. 4, and I want to see your jaw hit the floor before I reach the grand finale. My fingers trembling, rough with calluses, but I don't want calluses. I want soft, smooth hands to hold your hands after you fall in love with my undeniable musical talent. I want to be the first chair violinist in the LA Philharmonic. I will listen to YouTube videos of classical violin until I am the first chair violinist in the LA Philharmonic. I want all of the knowledge sprouting from my fingertips, easy as the water drips when I let my arms hang like scarecrows in the shower. I want the power of now. I want to feel powerful. I want to be strong. I want to be strong and healthy. I want a body that says I do 5 a.m. Pilates every weekday. I want to drink chia seeds and loose leaf green tea sweetened with agave nectar. I want to do Bikram yoga and sweat out toxins in 105-degree heat. I want to be hot. I want to be hot and sexy. I will wear leg weights while I sleep until I wake up in peak physical condition. My body a temple made of concrete, because I want to be strong. I want to right my wrongs like poems, find answers to all of life's problems hidden in witty double entendres. I want to write witty double entendres that actually make sense so people can laugh at my ingenuity. I want to be funny. I want to be hilarious. I want to fill rooms with uproarious laughter that have guts busting faster than a Cracker Barrel feast. I want to be the little lad that loves berries and cream, berries and cream. I want to be David Sedaris reading Santaland Diaries in a monotone stupor. I want to be Kylie Jenner realizing things. And I want to be Nicolas Cage fighting bees in a legendary remake of The Wicker Man. I will emulate the entire history of pop culture until I am the funniest person in a 10-mile radius at any given time, because I want to be hysterical. I want to be incomparable and vast. I want to be boundless and uninhibited, free from inertia and self-doubt. I want to master the practice of self-acceptance and love. I want the confidence to be everything I never thought I was. I want to be everything I never thought I was. I want to be everything I never was. Thank you.
So that that's just an example of slam poetry. And there's many different videos. If you look it up on Facebook or YouTube, of different people performing their slam poetry. And it's neat to be able to see how passionate that some people are when they are telling their story sometimes, and just reading their poetry to everyone. So I'm just going to finish off by giving a few tips to writing poetry if writing poetry is something that interests you. So the first tip is, when you are getting ready to write poetry, make sure to read lots of poetry. Read all the different kinds of poetry to find what really speaks to you. It's more enjoyable to write something when it's something that speaks to you than to just sit down and say, I'm going to write a haiku, even though it's something that might not be of interest to you. So really look around at the different types of poetry out there and find what you enjoy. The second tip is to write poetry as often as you are able to. If poetry is something that is a passion for you, designate a special notebook for poetry writing. Have that notebook beside your bed, or have a small notebook that you carry in your car or your purse. So if there's ever a time where you just a topic has come to mind and the poetry is already forming in your head and you really want to remember it, you're able to just grab that notebook from your side table, or you're able to go into your car and just grab that notebook and write it down. It can be very helpful. If you are feeling stuck, look up some poetry prompts. There are many different poetry prompts out there, and different websites that will help you write a poem, if that is something that interests you. Another tip is to attend poetry events. I know right now it's a little difficult, but look online and see if there's poetry events happening. If there's not any here, there may be a poetry event happening somewhere else in Ontario. And the nice thing about right now is that you are able to attend them through Zoom. So look into that if that's something that interests you. Another tip is to find a comfortable place to write poetry. A lot of the times you're going to be a lot more motivated, and you'll have that want to actually write a poem if you have a comfortable place to write it. If you have a den somewhere that specifically you just find is relaxing, go in there and try and write poetry. Or if it's nice outside, maybe take a chair outside and just sit outside and listen to the nature and enjoy the sunlight and try and write a poem. Just find somewhere comfortable for you. Another tip I found is to embrace metaphors. There are many metaphors out there, and it can be a great thing to use while writing poetry. And another tip is just to expand your vocabulary. If poetry is something that you're interested in writing, sometimes just sitting down and thinking of words and looking up different words that could mean the same thing can help you when you're writing poetry later on, because you might already have a list of different words that you can pull from, which is nice. So that's the end of my presentation on Let's Talk About Poetry. If anybody has any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Thank you so much, Michela, for allowing me to give this presentation. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michela. That's awesome. Every time you do a presentation, I am like eager to start like the journal jar, and now I feel encouraged to go write poetry. So I'm sure others feel the same. So thank you very much. So yeah, we'll wrap it up for today. yeah, if anyone has questions, they can always email us or things like that. But yeah, thank you so much, Michela.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.